Hey guys, how's it going? Hope you're doing well. My name is Crown, and today I'm going to read you some very interesting stories that I hope that you're gonna love. And now, without further ado, let's go! So me and my girlfriend were hanging out in this store that had a bit of everything when she decided to look for some covers for her phone. I stayed in a corridor near there looking at the tech stuff when suddenly a lady came to me. I was wearing jeans and a red polo. I guess she thought I was an employee, even though they had a blue uniform actually.
Hey you, can you tell me where I can get X item?
I look around for a second before looking back at her. I don't know, I don't work here. She interrupts me before I could say the magic word, I don't work here. And she says,
You brown people are all the same. You don't know how to treat customers. Disgusting.
The face I made as she left was priceless. I'm about to go to my girlfriend and tell her the story about this crazy lady, but before I could reach her, this lady comes back and, I kid you not, she starts spraying those house deodorants in my face, blinding me.
Serves you right for being lazy and racial slur.
What the hell? Help! My girlfriend heard me yelling and she came, and before I could say anything, I could feel the lady realizing that I didn't in fact work there. As my girlfriend calls the police in, I guess the staff didn't let her leave because when I could see again after washing my eyes, she was crying getting arrested. Police asked if I'd like to press charges and I definitely said yes. Even if I was an employee there, that's no way to treat people. Treat others as you wish to be treated. The end. P.S. I went for a checkup to my eyes after that and everything was thankfully alright. So I work as an armed guard for armed truck service. For those of you who don't know, we are responsible for picking up money and checks from other businesses, i.e. banks, stores, restaurants, and so on. As part of my job is handling large amounts of cash, I carry a sidearm or handgun for those not into guns in order to protect myself and the money. Where I live, you have to have what's called a concealed carry permit to have such a firearm outside of work hours, which I have. So I'm on my way home and have to stop at the store to pick up dinner for myself. The store I go to has employees that wear a blue bolo and tan pants. My uniform is black pants and red polo with a company name on it. And as I had just got off work, I still have my name badge on and sidearm in its holster on my hip. Cue the crazy lady. I'm browsing the freezer aisle and she stops me and starts to ask where product Z is. And she stops dead in her tracks as she sees my gun in its holster. She stops talking and quickly walks out of the aisle. I just assume she realized I don't work there and left to find someone who does. I go about my business and proceed up to the cashier line. As I'm waiting to get up to check out, in comes a swarm of about 8 police officers. They come straight to me with a crazy lady behind shouting,
That's him! That's the guy with the gun!
They point their guns at me and order my hands up. I drop what I have and comply. I state that I work for Company Z and that I have a permit for my weapon. They lower and holster their guns after the commotion and apologize for the confusion but said they got a call about a guy walking around the store waving a gun around. I say I'm sorry, but since I have been here, my gun has been holstered. Never left the holster. They turn to the lady and ask if it's true that I never took my gun out of the holster. She yells that I'm lying and that I can't have a gun in the store anyway. They of course go and check the security footage and see that I did nothing wrong. And they let me go on about my business and apologize again for the misunderstanding. They then turn around and handcuff the lady who called and tell her she's been arrested for misusing the 911 system and inciting panic. Being accosted by people who demand service from a non-employee has happened to me at the same big box warehouse store twice, but this one was truly mind-boggling. My boyfriend took me and our dog on a Starbucks run earlier and the line at the drive-thru was so long, so I just mobile ordered and went in to wait. I go to the Starbucks every day. I'm a regular and I love the stuff there, so I tip them quite a bit every time I go. Just a great vibe there. My boyfriend and I are about to have our 10th anniversary in August, and I can never have too many Starbucks cold cups, so I'm just sort of looking at them and perusing the shelves of products. This area is very clearly not a register, and I'm wearing a purple crop top, shorts, and the tie-dye Crocs. With my purse on my shoulder and sunglasses still on, I can see someone walk up towards the registers out of my peripheral vision. The 3 baristas working were running around making drinks. They were so slammed. And this absolutely stereotypical looking Karen lady is tapping her foot, sighing, checking her watch, and she has been standing at the register for maybe 30 seconds max at this point. She walks up super close behind me and I figure she's trying to kill time and look at cups or whatever while she waited. So I move out of the way and then they had my drinks done, so I hear them call my name, turn around to go get my drinks. My dog got his puppuccino, don't worry guys. And then this lady screeches, "Where do you think you're going, huh? How do you even have a job if you don't take orders at your register, you stupid witch?" I have pretty crippling anxiety as it is, and we had just come from Kroger, and it's the day before Father's Day, so they are packed. And Starbucks is super busy, so I'm trying to keep it together already before this, and this lady is just super insane. And I was so flabbergasted, I was so speechless. I just kept opening and closing my mouth in disbelief. The employees and everyone else is just dead silent. Truly, you could hear a pin drop. The manager has now heard the shrill screeching call of a Karen in the wild and emerged from her office in the back and just looked so bewildered that it was honestly comical. She asked what happened and the Karen started in about how lazy the employees are and they need to hire more people and that she knows there is a register at the display shelf. The manager said the most iconic Karen demeaning comment I've heard so far in 32 years of living. "Ma'am, she's not an employee. I am unsure of what makes you think a display shelf full of merchandise for retail has a hidden register somewhere, but that's not the case here. I can confidently say that people like you are the reason that everywhere is short-staffed. It's because of people like you. Leave now, or I will call the police and have you physically removed. Your choice, lady, and if you come back, you will be arrested. You are now trespassed from this store." At this point, my drinks have been ready a long time while this lady throws her hissy fit, so I just grab them and peace out of there. Update. I really should have stayed to watch this whole thing play out. She started screaming about reverse racism and reaching over the counter and just destroying anything in reach, like the entire stacks of cups, lids, and so on. Then they said she started screaming about being discriminated against because she's white. Yeah. During her never-ending rant, the manager called the cops from the back room because the whole situation just escalated very quickly, and she was Karen down to the point that they knew they wouldn't be able to force her to leave without touching her. The manager came back, told her the cops were called, and this lady said, "It's still making me cackle." Good, I already called them. If you're guessing that she didn't actually call the cops, you guessed right. Cop comes in, and this lady flies in midair over to him screaming that she was threatened and that's why she called him. And also, "Thank God you're here, officer. Thank you for coming when I called 911. I thought they were going to hurt me." These are all actual quotes from the manager relaying the story to me. The cop didn't know what to say to that, except, "Ma'am, the only call we received was from the manager here, about a customer causing a disturbance. We have no record of any 911 calls made by yourself or anyone else in the area except from this Starbucks location." Then she blew up again. Asked the cop, "Are you calling me a liar?" The manager told me that the cop threw up his hands and visibly rolled his eyes, and then just pulled her arms behind her back, like to restrain her. Nothing insane, just put her hands behind her back and calmly walked her out of there. The manager followed, saw another direct quote, and he took her to her car and told her, "Lady, get in your car, and leave right now, or I would be more than happy to give you a ride. There is plenty of room in a police car. She did manage to use half of her one brain cell, and she finally left. This is not my story. I was present for it, sure, but I did not see all of it personally. Rather, this is my father's story. So, some context. My father had a degree in mechanical engineering, either a master's or doctorate. It had taken him years to get, and he was very proud of that. Thanks to his training, he had found his way working for many well-known companies, working primarily with a procedure used to make various things. Over time, he privately began working on an idea that would revolutionize how school and gym lockers worked. See, my father realized that there was a problem with those types of metal lockers. Namely, it was very easy for a person to break into them. What's more, as the lockers were designed, there were multiple exposed moving parts, which meant that if a student put too many books in one, or really anything got against the door, the locker could be jammed shut, making it near impossible to open. So for several years, Dad toyed with a number of ideas before hitting on a new design which would solve all those problems. The inner workings of the locker's locking mechanism would be contained with a door in such a way that 1. It was impossible for someone to shim or break into, 2. The entire mechanism would be enclosed, and 3. It was relatively maintenance-free. Now, at this point, my father was a vice president of manufacturing, and apparently there wasn't a clause in his contract that said that if he designed anything while working for the company, then he had to turn that over to them for profit. Dad still approached the company, offering them the design, but they weren't interested. Dad sat on the design for a while before eventually just taking out several patents on them, and then forgetting about them. About 6 months after his first attempt at getting the company interested, the parent company's owner/chairman of the board passed away, and the board opted to sell off some of the holdings. The company my dad worked for was part of that. The new owners were young guys who seemed to think they knew everything, as young business owners always seem to think, and they set about changing 99% of the way things were being done. At some point, they stumbled across the plans my father had designed. Now that's where things turned curious. They really wanted to start producing this new design. But as they didn't have all the plans and processes laid out for them, they had to turn to my father for answers. Rather than asking him how to do it or licensing the patents, as any reputable company would have done, they ordered him to turn over all his work, or else they would fire him. Dad stood his ground and he refused. The new owners and my father went back and forth, arguing over details for several weeks, before finally the new owners fired my father for insubordination. So, on to the revenge. There may be more to this, but I'm not entirely sure if it's just pro-revenge. It could border on nuclear based on what happened some years later, though I am not certain that what later happened had anything to do with my father's actions. So, after cleaning out his office and packing things in the trunk of his car, my father headed home and made a few phone calls. He must have gone through 8 or 9 different calls before he got in touch with someone who was interested in what he had to say. See, my father was under no illusions that the company that had fired him wasn't going to just make those patent lockers on their own. He also knew that though the company itself was relatively small, the owners had money and there was no way he could find them. However, a larger company could. So he contacted the major competitors and made them an offer. He eventually set up a meeting with some people, wheeled down the prototype he'd made, explained how everything worked, and noted that with this system, the company could revolutionize the way lockers were both designed and improve both safety and security. What's more, as he was the only patent holder, for the next 7 years or so, that company could be the only company to produce them. The competitor jumped at the chance and bought all patents both for the design and the process. They even paid my dad a substantial consultancy fee to go out to their manufacturing site and teach their crews how to make the needed tools and die sets to produce them. Less than 6 months after the first company had fired him, their number one competitor was completely destroying them in the market with this new design. And there wasn't anything the first company could do about it. They did try suing my father, claiming he had stolen their intellectual property, but that case quickly evaporated when they had to admit under oath that they had never actually signed a contract with him, and there was no requirement that he turn over anything he created to the company. In the 7 years from when the second company bought the locker design and process patents, they were pretty handily moved into markets that previously they had been unable to. The first company sold Deodrant, but by the time the patent had finally expired, they were a shadow of their former selves. The new owners had sold the company at a loss with a competitor buying it, only to shut that production facility down due to redundancy, for maybe 200 people out of work. Though, given how they had lost so much business, I wager that it was far less than that. So yeah, the new guys don't want to play ball. Threaten the guy that holds the patents on something they want to do, and then fire him, only to have him take everything to their competitor and effectively put them out of business. Edit. To answer some of the questions that have arisen. 1. You don't know what his degree level was? Well, my father and I had a difficult relationship. There are very few good memories I have of him. And it wasn't until shortly before his death in 2007 from a stroke that I really started to connect with him. I resented him for most of my life because he was more career-minded than anything. I figure we moved some 10 times in 20 years, and it greatly affected me. For a rather long period of time, I am ashamed to say I hated my father, and I wanted nothing to do with him. 2. He must have ended up wealthy. Not really. Any money that Dad earned off his little endeavor was lost after an incident that left him disabled. Medical bills being what they are, by the end of it, we were pretty much broke. 3. Patents last 20 years. Design patents don't. They last 14. But the courts have historically sided with companies infringing on design patents after 7 years, so long as the infringing company develops their own method to produce whatever design is being used and modifies or changes it. 4. What company was this? I can't tell you that. 5. Any variations of how did the new owners not know? That answer is pure speculation on my part. However, I got the impression that the owners were in their mid to late 20s and trying to act like investors. The company was on offer relatively cheap from what I know, but had a rather long history in the manufacturing field.
And now we have reached the end of today's stories. Thank you for watching and see you next time.